Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, thank you so much for joining us. My name is Ugo. I'm an online business manager, systems and operation expert. I help small business owners build their businesses in a way that is smooth and sustainable so they don't compromise on their mental health. Right, so today I'm going to be talking to us about a topic that I think is very essential for every business, right? Whether you're a solopreneur or you're starting to build out a team or you're trying to scale your business, right? So we're going to talk about this topic that I feel is the lifeblood of every business, which is systems. We're just going to talk about systems, and I think I'm going to talk about it in like three videos, because systems is a very broad topic for me to squish into one video, right? So I'm going to just talk about what systems are, why they're crucial, and how to build them right. If you feel like this is something you're interested in, please get your notes and your paper, sit back and relax. Without further ado, let's dive into the video. Yeah, so what are systems, right? I know a lot of people, get confused with the word systems. It's quite ambiguous for some people. They feel it's too large. When people hear systems, sometimes they tend to think about processes. They tend to think about, the tools. They tend to think about the workflows, but none of these things are systems. They're actually right, but not entirely right. So what are systems? Systems are a combination of these things, right? All of these things. So like the workflow, the processes, the people involved, the softwares involved, the processes. I think I mentioned that before. So all of these things joined together form a system, right? Inside of a system, there are actually other systems, right? Inside a system. So we call that a subsystem in a system, right? So it's important for us to build systems because you, as a business owner, you don't want to continue revisiting the same topic every single time, right? You want to do something, you go back and you keep reinventing the wheel, right? So building systems allow you, free up your mental health or mental capacity, in barrier and paper, really. So some people tend to think that systems are for maybe big corporations and big companies and, what have you. But systems are actually for everyone that has a business, right? Everyone that has a business needs systems in their business. So systems can be as small as having templates, having checklists, having proposals, contracts, all of these things, when outlined and streamlined, they all form your system, right? So example of systems can actually be, your client onboarding flow, right? That's a very good example of a system. Now, another example of system can be your content creation flow. That's another example of, systems. Let me give you a last example, which can be your team hiring process. The entire process is involved in, hiring someone. It can be a system or can be systemized, right? So without, talking too much, let's go to why. Let's talk about why, systems are crucial for every business, right? Now, I've outlined 5, crucial reasons why systems are important for every business owner, right? So one of them is for consistency, right? Now, consistency in business is very, very important, especially if you're trying to build a business or trying to build a brand that will live, for a very long time, right? Or will be scalable, or you want to scale, or you want to sell, right? So being able to be consistent, being able to have a predictable outcome or result every single time is actually crucial for every business. Okay, so the second reason why you need a system, right, in your business is for time freedom. Why or how? Now, imagine having to, make decisions every single time you need to, carry out a task, right? Or imagine having to explain something to someone, write the steps every single time you need to delegate something to someone, right? It means that you're literally going to be in the business. You cannot take yourself out of the business, right? So for you to have time freedom, you need to actually have systems in your business. Now, the third reason why you need systems is for delegation. I just said it earlier, right? For you to be able to delegate or take yourself out of the business, you have to have the right systems in your business, right? You have to have the processes written down. You have to have the steps, the workflow, written down for you to be able to hand it to someone, for them to be able to understand them really, and then carry them out, right? So for you to have delegation, for you to take yourself out of a business, you need systems. Now, another reason why you need to, have systems for scalability, for you to be able to scale the business, right? Now, you cannot scale or a business that is chaotic. They'll have a chaotic process. For you to be able to scale a business, you need to streamline the processes, streamline the workflow processes, and then systemize them. That's the only way you can actually scale a business. So the last reason why you need to inculcate systems in your business is for you to have mental clarity and capacity, really. So, imagine having everything like all in your mind or all in your brain, right? Sometimes we don't understand the amount of space these things take up in our brain, right? So for you to have, brain space and capacity is for you to take them off and put them on paper, systemize them, right? So yeah, these are some of the reasons why you need to absolutely, systemize your business, as someone that is, ready to do business in the long run. So now let's talk about the right way to set up systems. I'm just going to, for the sake of the video, just mention one of the right ways. There's so many ways you can set up your systems, but to set up the systems that work for you, right, you have to be considerate of the person using the system, right? Now, one of the ways to do this is to consider the brain wiring of the person. Now, what's the use of having a system and it's not being used, right? So when you're setting up a system, you should be considerate of the person that is the user or the end user of that system. So in setting up the right systems, we have to have neurodiversity in mind, right? So neurodiversity encompasses the range of the different ways on how people's brains are wired, right? How people tend to associate, how people tend to do things, it's all encompassing. So there are two sets of people based on how the brain is wired, right? So we have the neurotypical people and we have the neurodivergent people, right? Now, I'm not a medical doctor, so I'm not just going to go into it I'm not going to zoom into it. If you would want to know or like to know more about this, I would urge you to, read up on this and ask questions or ask doctors, about it, because it's really very important. It will help you in knowing how to relate with people, how to work with people, and all of that, right? Now, let's talk about the neurotypical people. So these are people that have the brain wiring of the typical mind, right? These are people that, according to society or culture, have a typical brain wiring, right? Now, the neurodivergent people are people that have, unique brain wiring, right? Unique and different brain wiring. So these are people with ADHD, these are people with autism, these are people with dyslexia, Down syndrome, and all of those, right? So it's going to be unfair or even unprofessional for you to, set up a system without considering the brain wiring of individuals, right? So for you to be able to set up a system that will work for them, you need to set up a system that will work for their brain type, right? So you need to get to know them more personally. You need to be able to build systems that are bespoke to them, right? Having said all of these things, we need to understand that if you're working with a neurodivergent person, you need to understand that, having visual concepts. Some of them are visual learners. Some people are auditory learners. So, for example, you need to be a bit flexible in how you set up the systems. So for some people, we tend to like to communicate using Slack, but you could tell that working with a neurodivergent person, they will rather use Voxer, something that they can actually hear and all of that. So when you're working with a neurodivergent person, right, there are so many things that you have to be a bit flexible with, right? So things like you have to have like mind maps, things that have, auditory sounds, they work with sounds. So you need to find out how the person works for you to be able to structure the system like that, right? And then for communication as well, you cannot be rigid with the communication style. You have to be more flexible, right? And it all depends, it all varies from persons to person. So that's the reason why you have to have a better communication as to how they work, right? For you to be able to map a good system for them. So working with a neurotypical person, you bear in mind that they like, linear instructions, linear processes, visual organizations, clear communications. They're very structured, right? So most times flexibility is not really a thing, right? Because things are usually set and go for a neurotypical person. So having all of this in mind, for you to be able to set up the right system, you have to, put all of these things on the table for you to build with. So when creating systems, you should be dynamic so as to be able to, set them properly, right? And being dynamic is putting the end user, in mind, right? Even if you as a business owner, it might be neurotypical, you never know, maybe the person you're hiring might be a neurodivergent person. And that's the reason why you should have, for example, you're writing an SOP, you should have it in both a visual, form and a text format as well. So for visual, you can use things like Loom or Komodo to actually capture the visual representation of the steps, right? And then have it in text format as well. So all of these things are, necessary when, setting up the right system. There's a lot of things to talk about when, talking about systems, because it's a huge, topic. We will stop here. So in the next video, we'll be talking about, 5 essential systems every business owner should have. Right, and then we will be talking about tools that can be used, to set up the systems right. So I would want you to be there because it's going to be a very detailed video. Thank you so much for giving me your time and attention today. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Until then, bye for now.